Welcome back to this series on the greatest blitz match ever played. It was between Magnus Carlsen, Alireza Firouzja, the Banter Blitz Cup Final 2020, and here in Game 5, Magnus was looking to strike back against Alireza, having just lost the last game and gone down by a point in the match. The match scores on the right, it's 2.5, 1.5 to Alireza. So Magnus kicks off with pawn to e4 here. Now we saw this in his last white game and Alireza got into some trouble out of the opening with the black pieces. So what would he have in store here? Well, we go in for a Ruy Lopez again, but this time after knight f6 d3, here Alireza plays pawn to d6. In the last game he went pawn to b5. So after Magnus goes pawn to c3, he then goes g6. So a lesser seen system, but a decent one, very solid. We can see that black's about to fianchetto the bishop, get the king to safety after these moves. Magnus now goes knight b to d2. And here Alireza paused a moment what to play. He considered knight to h5. This is a key thing. He wants to try and get in f5 if he can. Instead, he starts with bishop to d7 here. Magnus goes knight f1, and now an interesting plan from Firouzja. He could have played knight h5 again, that was an option. Rook e8 if he wants to go for a slightly different plan than f5, but he goes queen to e8, and he's setting up some tactical ideas, as is so often his style. He wants to move this knight out of the way, and then this bishop will be exposed behind it to this battery. So Magnus goes knight to g3. He's happy enough to get in this move. Now he notes on his stream that knight h5 can't be played, so f5 should take longer. And here Alireza pauses for a moment and then thinks, okay, actually I think I can play knight to d4 here. And sure enough, he jumps in. This is blitz chess. They can't calculate everything. And what he's looking at here is that if Magnus takes on d7, he chops on f3 with check. The queen recaptures, the knight takes back, and now he's cleared the way for the f-pawn. He's doing fine here. But Magnus didn't play like this. If you want to pause and think how he played, then please do so. And if you're enjoying this and you're new to the channel, do subscribe to never miss a video in this series. So okay, Magnus played the obvious, pawn captures on d4. And it was a bit bad of Firouzja, he hadn't actually fully considered this. He'd just thought, okay, I take the bishop, I'm fine. But what he'd missed was pawn to b3, very simple move. His bishop has to give ground, then it gets kicked again. Okay, it gives ground again. What's the big idea? Well, here's the problem. This rook sat on the f-file here is actually boxed in. So if a bishop can land on a3 and attack it, you're in trouble, you're losing the exchange. So a very simple move, pawn takes, and actually Alireza's busted. If he takes back like this, bishop a3, you're picking up an exchange, you're winning the game. So after the pawn took here, he went knight to g4 instead. Now you can't carry on taking, then you lose your rook in the corner, but what you can do is simply go pawn to d4. Now Alireza recaptured this pawn. Again, you could go bishop to a3 here, still a good move, but even stronger was pawn to h3, which Magnus played. It kicks this knight back, and then he takes the pawn anyway. And you can't even recapture with the bishop, or you lose your knight on h6. So instead, Alireza tried bringing a rook to the d-file here, x-raying the queen, but bishop g5 was a great move from Magnus. It hits the rook here, so pawn f6 blocked that one, but now simply takes, bishop takes, the knight was picked up on h6, that's a free piece, but Alireza chops in the corner, the queen recaptures, so Magnus has picked up 2 minor pieces for the rook. A great advantage, and the king is ripped to shreds here. So we had rook to f7, the knight came to g5 hitting the rook, now it came to e7, the pawn kicked on to e5, so this pawn is defended by 2 pieces, it can't be captured. Instead bishop c6 was played, now this knight came into e4, looking at f6, the bishop chopped it off, but the other knight is simply coming into the game now. If you take here with the rook, then we're jumping in with check, that's devastating. So instead queen c6 was played, and now there are different ways to finish the game. You can go bishop g5, Magnus goes pawn e6, now this queen is supporting the f6 square and the checks, and here actually Alireza just chucked in the towel, the position was lost. So unfortunately, opening trouble again in these e4 lines. What can he do in his next black game? If you enjoyed this video, then do subscribe to the channel, and see another amazing Carlsen Firouzja game, click here. Thanks for watching, see you soon.